Hello my friends, and welcome to one of the coolest and also one of the closest battles that I've done ever so far on this channel in 3rd Age Total War Reforged, a multiplayer battle between myself as Mordor and Niels on the other side as Gondor defending Minas Ithil. Now, like I said, this battle is super duper epic, super duper close. As you can see, the bouncing power is smack dab in the middle. I did get a little bit of an extra monetary bonus, but really not that much. I think, if I remember correctly, Niels had about 17,000 and I had about 20k. So it was quite close, because of course, as a defender, you do get a little bit of an advantage. Now, this battle does have a custom victory condition. It was not enough for me to kill all the Gondor troops and take the settlement. No, there was actually 2 units of peasants back here, civilians, which are labeled as heavy infantry for some reason. And my goal was to kill them, because only by killing the peasants will the true soldiers of Gondor have failed their duty. Alright, so this battle features a lot of special units on both sides, so we're gonna take the time whilst we are pushing across the river to take a look at some of them. All the way in the back, we have the orcs, which are comically holding on to one ladder all at the same time. But as stupid as these guys look right now, they do so much damage. If I'm not mistaken, they do get the most kills out of the entire battle on both sides. So yeah, they are a force to be reckoned with, as we all know. Then we have some orc archers over here, which they're not really the most well suited for this kind of battles. That's also the reason why I only took 2 of them. This is not really where they excel. We have some war drums, which are quite necessary to keep the morale up. The orcs are notoriously not the most, you know, they don't keep fighting till the end. They usually rout when they start taking casualties. So these drummers are quite necessary to keep up morale. Then my general unit is, of course, the Nazgul leading the charge. Now, the sharp among you might notice there are more than 9 of them. Just deal with it. Back here we have, if I'm not mistaken, Melkor Chosen. Yes, they are heavy cavalry riding on these big-ass wolves, using a small kind of buckler shield and a big-ass mace. I also really like the horns on their helmets. They're a very cool unit, although for most of the battle they won't be able to do much, as we'll see soon. Niels was so smart to put up some stakes, knowing full well that I would bring at least some heavy cavalry like the Great Beasts and like the Melkor Chosen there. Then we got some Orc Maulers. I think I have about 2 units of them. Some Sauron's Will, which is just basically a scarier Orc Mauler unit. Look at them. Look at those cleavers, man. You don't want to get hit by them. What else we got? I think that's everything here on the right. Orcs moving in. A lot of Orc Maulers, like I said. We also have 1 unit of Troll Catapults. In the beginning, they won't really do much except kind of block stuff, but they will play a key part in this battle. Alright, so we got a lot of Minas Morgul's Chosen as well, a very strong defensive heavy infantry. The camera's bugging out a little bit more. Minas Morgul Chosen there. We also have a unit of Blackguard of Barad-dûr. It's actually a pretty cool angle. Look. You can just see how big the siege towers are. They're like 100 orcs tall. So Blackguard of Barad-dûr, a heavy infantry unit that will have no problem smashing through the gate. And then most of the rest of my army is made up out of Moradon infantry. I think that's that in terms of special units, but we might spot some others. Ah, there's 1 more unit, and that is, if I can get them, the Temple Executioners. So we have the Temple Wards, we have the Temple Marksmen, Temple Knights, but this is just a big-ass 2-handed cleaver with multiple hit points, kind of like a Berserker unit among the Temple rosters. Black Numenorians. As we are encroaching upon the gate, we still have time to take a look at Gondor's units. We already saw the peasants back here, the civilians. A unit of Nimlothian Honor Guard, which is basically Fountain Guard with shields. Let me tell you, you will see later in the battle, these guys are almost immortal. They just don't die. They are one of the toughest, if not the toughest unit in the game. If I actually take a look at their stats, I cannot for some reason, that sucks. But they do have multiple hit points, very high defense, shield and pike. They just don't die. We have some Ithilian Rangers over here. Beautiful, of course. They play. They have a large stake. That means Morgul, or Minas Ithil, I should say, stay in the hands of Gondor. Back here we have some Wardens of the White Tower, also the General. They're doing a shield wall shuffle. Some Wardens of Minas Ithil, which are similar to Ithilian Rangers. And then a very cool unit of Gondor Archers, 3 of them in armor, or 2 of them, excuse me. Really cool. That armor is like straight out of the movies, and it's such a good design. You just can't beat it. Some Gondor infantry, just kind of hiding away from my archers, I presume, which he couldn't really know how many I would bring. Then he has 2 units of Fountain Guard and 2 units of Spearmen, along with stakes to hold the gate. So the gate isn't really a priority target for me. I mostly focused on climbing the walls, and he mostly put Gondor spears on them, Gondor infantry, some marksmen of Carandros, which is an excellent hybrid unit. They are both good in missile and in melee. He's pulling some of them back. Alright, what else? Gondor infantry, some more marksmen, also pulling some of them back. And I think that's it. So now we can take a look, as I've already started firing with my catapult, killing a couple of the marksmen of the Gondor infantry, but he did pull them back. So the battle did bug out at some points, but mostly it went pretty smooth, which you can't say for all custom settlement battles. So yeah, my priority was to get the siege towers just in large quantities, get them everywhere. I wanted to climb all the walls at all the same time, just overwhelm them, because although he has a large amount of forces, he is forced to defend multiple positions. A lot of them are archers, so they're not really excellent at holding down certain choke points. So in terms of infantry, we definitely do outnumber him, so he wasn't able to protect all the walls. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, we can kind of use the Minas Ithil tower to get a bit of an overview with the camera angle there. Oh, look at that, look at that! The forces of Mordor just streaming across the river. The defenders of Gondor desperately trying to hold on to them. Get like a bird's eye view. Oh, that looks so great. I don't think I can ever get tired of this game. Look at that. So yeah, a lot of siege towers. They do look quite meaty. Not sure what the reasoning behind it is. I do assume that's some kind of leather. It doesn't really look like metal to me. It looks more fleshy. Yeah, I'm bringing in the orc drummers, the troll drummers, not the orc drummers, the troll drummers, to motivate the men, and they're climbing on the walls. We do have our first confrontation here, but I do remember that this siege tower bugged out a little bit. As you can see, most of the units on there just kind of... not sure what that guy's trying to do. They just kind of stay on there, they don't really pour on the walls, but luckily other units do. I'm not sure, yeah, some units also, like the Temple Execution, I wanted to send them on this siege tower, but they kind of bugged out and just decided to run over there. But luckily, there is always one unit you can count on, the Uruk-hai. They put up their ladder, which is just slightly too short. Then again, they are quite huge themselves, so they'll have no problem bridging that gap. And Nils has his Gondor infantry desperately going to try to hold the wall, but spoiler alert, it does not go well for them. So at this point, the archers have killed about 4% of our units, which isn't too bad. Mostly shitty units as well, as the Uruk-hai now are on the walls, and they just tower over these men. They just go to town. I think their attack is over 40, so pretty much every hit kills a soldier. And they swing their axes or their hammers pretty darn fast. They look like slow, sluggish kind of units. They are absolutely not. They are quick as bees, and they sting like them too. Look at that. That was a unit of about 150 Gondor infantry. They're already down 20, and they just look at the corpses. Meanwhile, Mordor, the Minas Morgul Chosen, and the Blackguard are coming up to try and outflank them as well. His units are still a little bit stuck, climbing down from the walls. There we go, beautiful. More siege towers are encroaching, and at this point I also decide to sending the Ram along with the Great Beast, because, I mean, we can't win by solely taking the walls. We do have to push onwards. Some more troops are piling on them, but our infantry trying to claim the walls, but it is not easy. The Gondor defenders are quite stout, they are quite brave, they're very well armoured. They're also highly motivated to not surrender Minas Ithil. So do let me know in the comments right now which faction you think is going to win, because right now it's still really even, and it will be even for a very, very large part of the battle. It's only right at the end that there is a clear victor. And let me tell you, it ain't this guy. I have so many questions, like what's going on in your life, dude? Talk to me about it, it's okay. Alright, big ups for that guy. Alright, so we've got more Blackguard coming in. Now I'm just pouring everything across the river. No man left behind. Bringing in the Troll Catapult as well. The Orc are kind of stuck. This unit's also getting a little bit stuck there. It happens. These custom, I mean, they aren't easy to make. I can only imagine what effort it takes to make them, but this one worked magically. Look at that, the Uruk-hai. We did lose one at this point. But, yeah, I'm not sure how he killed that one. Must have been a fluke, because the other ones are still very healthy. That's not their blood on them, just so you know. That is very much Gondor blood. Alright, in terms of positioning, he's trying to get his archers into a good position. Yeah, I can see the marksmen of Carandros using their double-handed swords. So you know these guys are beasts in melee as well. He's trying to get him into a good position that he can also fire from below onto the walls in case we do take him. because you are just pouring on there. The spearmen are strong, they do have very high defense. Now these guys have finally started to pour on there. But there's just too many of us. We're coming from all angles now. Because, for example, this siege tower got up there relatively unopposed, sending these guys in there as well. So these guys are surrounded, and their morale is not as good as you would think. I thought the Gondor infantry would never rout, but we do notice that during the battle they sometimes do rout, especially when they're just surrounded like this, which I don't blame them. I would absolutely rout. At this point, the Nazgul themselves have decided to knock down the gate. I forgot to bring Grond. They still parked in my garage. So let's speed things up just a tad bit now, as he's desperately trying to get his Gondor infantry in position as well. Now he does have some reserves, and we did make a bit of a house rule that once he loses 30% of his army, he has to pull back to the second layer to kind of make it a double layered attack, so as to not always have to fight purely on the outer wall. Now I made a bit of a mistake here by sending in my Great Beasts. I was aware that the pikes would attack the Great Beasts, but I thought if I just walked them in there, they wouldn't actually be damaged by them, and they don't, but the hitboxes are so large that by the time I do tell them to attack, I tried to tell them to use their javelins first, but that didn't really work out. I was like, alright, I'll just send them in melee. They do end up charging, and they do end up killing quite a few of them. You will see that in a bit, as he's using fire arrows to probably try and dissuade the morale of my men, but well, it doesn't work that easy, because of course my men are highly motivated because of the troll drummers. And it's at this point that he's getting closer and closer to losing 30% of his armies, 15% down, but here we do a flank that he didn't really expect. The Olokai storming down the tower there and going straight into the rear of the Fountain Guard. Actually, the javelins are killing a fair bit. Perhaps I should have let them do that for a little bit longer. So at this point, he's kind of like, oh, I need to move my Fountain Guard around, and that is the excellent time for me to march in my Great Beasts. And here you will see my mistake come true. Oh man, even in the battle replay, it's laggy. It was super laggy during the battle itself. There was so much going on. I think there were about 5,000 to 6,000 units on the battlefield. So the Olokai are having a good time against the Fountain Guard. I walk him in there, but at this point they started running and charging and dropping. That Great Beast unit didn't really do much. They pretty much all died because of this, which was a grave mistake on my part, and one I am not likely to repeat. I do very much have learned my lesson. Alright, so right now we got a lot of fighting on the walls, bringing in the Melkor's Chosen as well, because if I'm not mistaken, do Inspire as well, just to make sure these guys do not rout. They are wavering at this point, but because of the motivational drumming going on back there, and look at that unit. They're so derpy, but I love them. They're one of my favorite units. Just look at them. They're having so much fun. Bong, bong, bong. I love this guy's helmet as well. Look at him. That's a guy that loves his job. But it does work well enough to keep these guys from routing. The Gondor Spearmen are still having a good time, and at this point we are breaking through. We've killed 23%, so he's starting to gear up for a retreat to the central plaza of Minas Ithil. Now my Olokai are starting to drop, but at this point they've killed over 300 Gondorians, so they've very much paid for themselves. In terms of value, it just doesn't get much better than that, and my units are starting to pour onto the undefended walls. Just look at this massacre that the Olokai left behind. You see like one dead Olokai here, two more here, and then there's the lone survivor standing there. Because I'm not sure where that siege tower is going. They did bug out sometimes a little bit, but doesn't really matter now. We have taken most of the outer wall, and we are pouring through inside. At this point, I also sent in my troll drummers just to keep the men motivated and also do some damage as my Olokai was starting to drop. I was also trying to get some sneaky shots with my catapult across the wall here to try and hit the waters of the White Tower, but it doesn't really work out. He also pulls them back there, but the angle just isn't quite sharp enough to make it across, so I quickly dissuade that plan and focus more on just pouring the men in. That's kind of my point here. Break through this line, walk over the corpses of the Great Beasts. Oh my god, the game can barely run it. We're only at 10 FPS right now. But yes, they are starting to die. There's just so much stuff going on. He's pulling some men down from the walls. And at this point, he has lost 29%, so it is his cue to start pulling back towards the inner wall, and it is my cue to start pouring in as the first layer of the defenders has started to fall. No matter how shiny or how strong their armor is, even the crude weaponry of Morgoth can just pierce through it. You also see the Nazgul fighting, also one of the powerhouses in this battle. The Nazgul and the Olokai definitely did the most damage. very strong unit, as they should be, of course. It is lore accurate. So as you can see, he's trying to pull back. Some of them do get stuck in melee, so it's fine that he doesn't pull them back. You know, if they're fighting, you can't really run at the same time. But also his men are getting very tired. They are starting to waver. Their morale is starting to cripple. Here they are trying to pull back, but at the same time, that is causing a lot of casualties as well, as we just start pouring through. The orcs do not show mercy. They're not the most honourable folk. As we have the last, if I'm not mistaken, Olokai, or is that the captain of the troll drummers? I believe that is the last Olokai. And at this point they are pretty much done, and we have to win the battle without them. Now my first strategy was just to get 5 units of Olokai and see if I could win the battle with that. Luckily I didn't do that, because whilst the Olokai they dish out a lot of damage, they also take a fair bit, especially from archer fire, so it wouldn't really have worked out. But still, you can get a nice perspective. And I quite like the cinematic approach we have now of the Gondor troops just desperately trying to run back. They are all broken at this point. At this point I was desperately trying to chase them, just get as many captives as I could. Take as many prisoners, because you will see later in a couple minutes that prisoners we take can also be released in Mordor fashion. And those of you who watched the Lord of the Rings movies especially know what I'm talking about. So in a later stage we will release the prisoners again. So everyone we're taking prisoner now, they will be returned to their families in one way or another. Partially. Somewhat. Alright, the troll drummers, I think they also scare the enemy infantry, which makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't want to see that guy walking across to me just banging away on his drums. So you can already tell that at this point, because I'm not sure, I don't think I was able to put siege towers or ladders on these walls. It is a massive choke point right here. The passage of Minas Ithil, guarded by the 2 kings. There we go. So he's retreating there. He's also pulled back his peasants to a bit more of a safe corner of the map, because he knows that if those peasants die, that is the end of the battle for him. So he will not let that happen. He will very much try to keep them as the last unit. Pulling back his marksmen of Carandos, trying to get a position where the infantry holds the choke point and the archers fire across. But I do remember Nils saying that he had some trouble getting his archers to actually fire, probably because they want to avoid friendly fire. And yeah, this choke point is very small, so from specific angles the archers just can't really hit him. So whilst they are desperately trying to get a good angle, it doesn't quite work out for them. They do bug out a little bit. As the game is coming to a crawl, oh god, it is getting so laggy. Because now we enter the end game. The outer wall has fallen. All of the remaining defenders have pulled back to the inner courtyard. But we are unrelenting. We don't even give them any moment of respite to catch their breath. We keep pushing. Look at that, guys, like motivating the men. Push forward for Sauron. It is of course our goal to capture Minas Ithil, to kind of stop Gondor from keeping Mordor into check. And we can also return the Witch King of Angmar. Not very much return, but give him a new ancestral seat. That is very much our purpose here. I am just pouring more and more of my men in. Literally just throwing everything I have, including the catapult. The catapult at this point has most of its ammo remaining. I think I only fired about 3 or 4 shots. Also bringing in the Melkor's Chosen, but not sure if you've already noticed it, or if I didn't really point it out, but he does have stakes here, so I can't just run in there. Now the trolls are unaffected by the stakes because they are labeled as an infantry unit, not a cavalry unit. Let's just enjoy the carnage. I get some cinematic shots in there as he's desperately trying to push me out. And it's very much a back and forth. At this moment, we have killed 43% of the enemy, and they've killed 37 of us, so it is looking in our favor, but let me tell you, it ain't over yet. Far from it. As the marksmen of Carandos now have somewhat returned fire. These guys are still spazzing out. He's also sending in some archers into melee because right now he is sort of starting to get limited in terms of how much infantry he has. Especially because, well, 2 unit slots are taken up by the peasants. So it is starting to get more and more dire. My troll drummers at this point, I kind of threw them away, which was a little bit silly looking back. I should have held them on longer because they're just so good to have in the background. They are capable in melee because, well, they're trolls, but that's not really their main job. But at this point you can already tell what I'm trying to do. I'm like, if he wants a chokehold, he'll get a chokehold. And we just try and toast the Gondor defenders, and look at the lag it's causing. Oh god, it is brutal. So we can try and get a bit of a bird's eye view there. So the catapult's over there. trying to fire through that small gap, and more often than not, absolutely succeeding. But as you will see later, perhaps already in this shot, now that's a decent shot, there will also be a little bit, just a little splodge of friendly fire. Alright, let us enjoy the trolls loading of the catapults. But they are quite precise for the most part, as you can see, another toasty shot right there coming in. But then again, the marksmen weren't really my priority target. Although they are a scary unit, I wanted to get more and more hits here, so I tried to tell them to focus fire closer and closer to the blob. Because I'm pretty sure if I got like a good shot that killed about 20 or 30 in one go, like that for example, they would start routing or lose morale, but it doesn't really happen. They do get shaken, but then I get shots like that where I mostly kill my own units, so it is a bit of a back and forth. And that is also displayed in the balance of power, which is now pretty much even. So we were ahead a fair bit, but we kind of threw that away. We lost our trolls as well, so things just became a lot more closer again. Now, in case you are wondering, I do believe the catapult has a net positive result in terms of friendly fire and enemy fire. There is a lot of friendly fire, but it does still kill more of the enemy than of our own armies. Yeah, right now there's really not much to comment about. This is just a grind of a battle, just a brutal battle right up until the last man, I can tell you that. Another friendly fire shot there, as the game is just crawling to a halt. I did send in my Melkor's Chosen, but I wanted to make sure they wouldn't charge in, because then the stakes would kill them. But they are still a very good cavalry unit, even in like an infantry engagement, without being able to charge. Their charge is decent, but they have multiple hit points, very high defense. Oh, look at that, another really bad shot there. But then you have like a shot like that, and it's like, alright, that's pretty good. Because I do change my target at that point. When those bad shots happen, I do tell them, fire on a distant target. Otherwise, if you tell them to fire on this guy here, most of the shots are going to land here. My attempt was if I aim on them, they might hit them by accident. Which doesn't work out 100%. I do think Niels explicitly moved the Ithilian Rangers back far enough so that wouldn't happen. At this point, he feels desperate enough to send in one unit of his civilians just to kind of try and stop me from pouring through, because he knows if I manage to pour through, like that's the shots that I wanted, and surround him, then those men would rout in no time. I would try to speed things up a little bit now, seeing as this is very grindy, but I'm afraid the battle just cannot handle it. There's just too many troops on the battlefield. Look at that, it's going even slower at 6 times speed. So we can just enjoy the carnage. The Gondor troops are desperately trying to push us out, because they know that chokehold is very important to them. The more I push through, the more I try to surround them, the worse it gets for us. So they kind of want to do a reverse tactic on us. And at this point they do have a lot of their units, but if I'm not mistaken, it is right around this time, or very close to it, that Nils also loses his general. And my general was part of the Nazgul unit, and well, he's a little bit tougher to take down, although the Nazgul are very much in the thick of it. So I would like to show you, but I don't think my computer can handle that. I think it's going to die at this point. But the Nazgul, yeah, they at this point they've only lost about 2 or 3 of the 13, so they really don't give much of a damn. Alright, and those must be getting close to the last shots of my catapult. There you go. Now imagine if this was a dwarven catapult and we had like creep shot. I think just everyone would be gone. Alright. I think at this point, or very close to it, we start releasing the prisoners, which, in case you're not quite aware, there is an ability for certain catapults in Medieval 2 to fire rotting cow carcasses, which cause a lot of morale damage. But the modders, in a change that I very much love, decided to just make it like releasing the prisoners, throwing heads of enemies or other body parts of the Gondor defenders back at them. So you'll see them soon in action, and they are quite good. They don't really deal damage. I think they deal very minor damage, but it's mostly all about the morale damage that they do. Just weaken the resolve of the defenders. That is a massacre right there. So most of my orc trash at this point is very much dead, and it's down to our elites, our Morgul's Chosen, our Sauron's Will. What else we got there? Melkor's Chosen, the Nazgul. And there you see the power of the Nimlothian Honor Guard. They've been fighting non-stop and they've barely lost a man. That is that scary Fountain Guard unit with shields. Oh, another good hit there. The game just cannot handle it. Really, I didn't think, because I remember when we were doing the battle, it got really laggy, but I was like, it'll be fine in the battle replay, because battle replays usually are less laggy. But it's worth it in my opinion, it's so epic. It was so much fun to play this one. And again, although I mention it all the time, if you guys do want to join one of these battles, the link for the Discord is down below. We have plenty of people in the Discord who have Divide and Conquer multiplayer, Reforged, DCI even ready to go, so you can play any of those games. The Discord has specific ranks for people. Oh, there we go. We start releasing the prisoners. It does have specific ranks for those who are up for multiplayer. So yeah, just hop on in, pop someone a message, and you'll be good to go in no time. I also join in battles, as you can see, although I don't always have time for them. When someone asks you, hey, you want to do the battle for Minas Ithil? You say yes. No matter what you're doing, you say yes. Especially when you can just throw Gondor heads at their own men. There we go. We mostly hit the walls, but it has a very nasty blood splatter effect, which that's just gross. Like, they're just being covered in blood. It's, as you can see, it does a real number on their morale. And the orcs, they just kind of revel in it. They're steady. They don't care. They enjoy the blood and the carnage. This is what they're made to do, you know. They're pretty much an artificial creation, and this is what they were made to do: kill, destroy, and cause grief. As the Gondor troops are starting to lose hope. They're still fighting, but some are starting to rout. This unit of 6 spearmen, for example. That's not the biggest, you know, loss for Nils, 6 spearmen. But there is a very big domino effect in Medieval too. Once one unit starts routing, it very much impacts other units as well. Just look at this clusterfuck. If more units start routing, you're just never going to see the end of it. They're going to keep pulling back, and when they get to the town square, of course, they get the infinite morale, but they're just gonna die. They've lost their will to fight. They're like, if they want Minas Ithil this badly, just give it to them. Curses. Alright, at this point, if I'm not mistaken, he still has one unit of peasants in the back. Yep, there they are. Because he knows that as long as they live, they are fine. They're wielding shovels, and I do quite like that there's like female models as well. The clothing kind of reminds me of Mount and Blade Warband. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that sees it like that. But yeah, we're just chugging along at 10 frames. Oh god, there's just so much carnage going on such a small space. Oh lord. I don't know if there is a way for me to have a smoother replay. At this point, my troll catapults were out of ammo, so I did send them in. Because, you know, they're a catapult unit. But at the end of the day, some of my units are also routing now, but just an archer unit, not too big of a deal. The other ones are still healthy. A troll is a troll, you know. Even if he was trained to fire catapults, he will still excel in melee combat. You just can't take him down. They have multiple hit points, very high defense, very high attack. They're not comparable to Olokai or even the War Drummers, to be honest, but in a pinch, they are quite nice to just shove the defenders back. They were at one point very close to pushing us out of the settlement, but now the tide is slowly turning. Mass power is creeping more and more in my favor as I have taken the upper hand here. We were behind before we started the battle of the inner courtyard, but now we are pushing ahead. But it is still super duper close. Look at that. They're fighting among the charred remains of their allies, their friends, trying to protect the women and children. The women and children have been dying as well, because that peasant unit is down to 95, so they have lost some civilians there. And yes, with the help of the trolls, we are able to make a very nice kind of a bridgehead, just shoving them through, and you can see, and that's what I really like about Medieval 2, and something I miss in newer Total War games. They're just being pushed back. You have like actual mass of your units. It's a back and forth, like it would have been historically as well. And there we go, and the unit of 93 Gondor infantry has started to rout, which causes a huge domino effect for some other units as well. The archers surely losing hope as well. The marksmen of Carandros are quite tough, but as you can see, they're starting to just pour away to the town square, and that gives us the space, because even if they do come back after drought, we've already created so much space that we can move our units more and more around. And our units are very tough as well. Most of the orc scum has died by this time, but what we have remaining are units with very high defense, multiple hit points. You see with the Nazgul, for example, back there, they still have 7 men. They started with 13. They've been in non-stop battle ever since they broke down the gate. They've run in there. They've run in here first as well. They just do not die, which is, of course, also lore accurate. Although I guess some of the women could kill the Witch King if he's part of this group. Wouldn't that be funny if it wasn't Eowyn that killed him, or just some random peasant girl from Minas Ithil? Just happened to be there with a shovel in her hands. So at this point, Troll Catapult has started to just wither away. He's trying to do a counter push again, trying to push me out, but at this point, he's lost too many men to really make an effective push. We have a lot of our strong, very mass-heavy troops like the Minas Morgul. They don't really get pushed out that easily. Temple Executioners also doing what their name would make you think they would do. Execute. He's going ham on the Cadandros Marksmen, and although they are a capable hybrid unit, they're still a hybrid unit. They're not a dedicated infantry unit, so they do suffer against specialized infantry like the Sauron's Will, like the Temple Executioners, like the Nazgul as well, who are just carving their path through the Minas Ithil Guardians, or the Wardens of Minas Ithil. That is quite a mouthful. The Wardens of Minas Ithil. The Horn of Gondor is desperately going off, and right now it is still very close. 77% for 76%. It is really going to come down to the last man standing, which should be one of the civilians. But he has already sent in that other stack as well, because he feels like he really needs it. And I don't blame Niels for that. Although his goal was to protect as many civilians as possible, at this point he needs the civilians just to make up the mass that is stopping us from just completely overwhelming him. So at this point I am just shoving in everything we've got. Any of my reserves are coming in. Orc archers as well. I know on the battle map you can see there's one unit here, but it's a routed unit that just never really bothered going home. So they're just kind of shell-shocked of what's going on. They don't really know how to move or what to do. I am sending my Mulkos Chosen now, trying to carve a path through the enemy. But I am very much aware that there are stakes there, so I'm trying to be very careful about it. I do lose some of them to stakes, not all of them. I think I lose about 6 to stakes because of, yeah, just kind of acting like they charge. They don't really charge. But as soon as they pick up momentum, as soon as they reach a certain speed threshold, they just die by stakes. Just if they're walking, they don't. Alright, we are getting closer and closer to the end of the battle, and it is just teeth-clenchingly close. The balance of power is slightly more in my favor, but if you take a look at the percentages, it is very much dead even. Alright. Melkor's Chosen, they don't take no for an answer. Look at that, the wolves just pushing through, scaring the enemy into submission as well. And more of them are starting to rout again and again. They just go back to the town center. He tries to send them back in, but once they break, the morale always suffers some penalties, and they just never really get back to full fighting shape. And at this point, mass routing is starting to ensue, which gives us a lot of opportunities, a lot of time to just circle around, and my units are taking good advantage of that. So again, they rout to the town center, come back again. Same with the civilians. They rout, but they get some casualties, some more prisoners that we can release later. At this point, I do want to move in my Melkor's Chosen. Some of them die because of this, but it's very much worth it. Because as cavalry, despite these guys being very good in melee, you still want to try and get your charge on. So here we go, you see I'm trying to move them out, trying to move into a bit more of the open field here, so to give me some room and some space to really pick up some speed, do some proper charging. It doesn't really work out. So at this point I tell them to run. Some of them still die because of it. Like this guy, for example, if I'm not mistaken. Actually survives. So yeah, I lost a couple of them, but they still have like 16 I think left? 12 left. Which is more than enough to give the defenders of Minas Ithil a very hard time indeed. Look at that, they're desperately trying to keep me out. But the battle is growing more and more in my favor as I'm trying to master the camera. And you would think with less units the lag would not be so bad, but that is absolutely not the case. It is still very much a laggy battle. I'll try to get it fixed, but I'm not sure what I can do about it. I think it's just a matter of having a bajillion units on the battlefield fighting each other at the same time. It's one of the best feelings in the world, let me tell you that. Oh, look at that, it's so cool. The Orc Maulers with their big, whatever you want to call them, bardiches I guess? Just going nuts. Gondor archers desperately trying to fend off the attackers, even using their bows as sort of a melee weapon, because to deflect attacks it could work. They are wielding a sword in one hand, a bow in the other. Very cool indeed. Civilians are starting to die as we do get some successful charges off there. They're not all dead, there are still 2 units of them, with roughly 100 men in total. That is getting increasingly more desperate. The balance of power is shifting more and more in our favor. We are now 10% ahead. So yes, I don't think it is no longer a secret that we do win this battle at the very end, but it was very, very close. And I'm mostly surprised of the morale of my units. I really thought that my units would rout a lot quicker, and I mean a lot quicker than Gondor's units. But I guess us killing the general, and with our general still being alive for, well, the end of the battle, the Nazgul, most of them do survive, including my general, despite being in battle for pretty much the entire battle. They do not rout, but these guys, yeah, they're just exhausted, wavering, routing again and again and again. They push back, they move back, just having a very impossible time of keeping us back. We have now fully pulled out of the choke point. Still have, I think, a couple units in reserve, some maulers, some archers, a 200 unit there, for example, which I really should be sending in. I guess I kind of forgot about them. I was enjoying the battle too much, just enjoying the carnage. Look at that. Desperately trying to command the men to pull out, but it's not working out. The Nazgul going ham with their Morgul blades, it seems. Chop, chop. Yeah, no man can kill them. Alright. And here we have the Nimlothian Honor Guard, which had routed at that point. I wanted to charge them for shits and giggles, because Nils was complaining, oh, they kept routing, they never come back. And shouting them actually triggered them to regain their composure and start fighting again, which really scared me, because even though there's only 4 of them, they are by far the strongest units he had in his roster, so them charging us right here is not ideal. It's far from ideal. So we do try to charge them again with the Melkors chosen. But at this point we are pretty much close to killing all of his civilians. I think he has just a couple remaining, but they will soon die. And with that we have reached our victory conditions, and Niels is forced to admit defeat. So there we go, that is the battle of how, there we go, players in defeat, of how Mordor reclaimed Minas Ithil and rebaptized it as Minas Morgul, the seat of the Witch King of Angmar. And there we go, an average victory for me. We did deploy similar amounts of men, which is a little bit of a surprise, because I had some units that were at the same time tiny and at the same time really big, like trolls and the Great Beast, for example, but still, I would have thought that I would have way more men than Gondor did. But yeah, roughly equal numbers. If you take a look at the battle statistics here, the Olokai killing 456. Absolutely insane amount of kills. Look at that. Minas Morgul shows also 222 there. The Troll Catapult 313, but then take a look at all the friendly fire there. Friendly fire is the number between brackets. If you add all that up, that's roughly 100 to 150, I would think. And then the Nazgul also killing 311. So yeah, there we go. One of, in my opinion, coolest battles, most close battles as well. It really came down to the very end. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and I very much hope to catch you for the next battle. Bye bye!